it came out pretty good. I mean, all I painted was the red and I just clear coated it. Just to, you know what I mean? Just something, that's all. I still go back and forth on whether or not I should have painted the intake this black pearl color as opposed to, you know, how the factory intake is more of a silver and it kind of stands out, you know what I mean? And I think it would have looked nice in conjunction with the blower, you know what I mean? Because you have this kind of, you know, all one, I don't know. I honestly would have got the black blower if I could have afforded that, you know, that kit, or, you know, but I think it was, I don't know, maybe I could have got this version. No, I don't know if they had this version in black. I'm not sure. This is the SCI, so I don't know. Maybe it didn't come in black. I'm sure I could have got it in black, but whatever. Either way, yeah, that looks pretty good, right? I did pick up some of this tape you guys might be interested in. It's like the cloth style tape. It came in a 5-pack. It's cheap, Amazon, but it works really well. And it reminds me of the factory, you know, the factory style cloth tape. And it's nice to cover the plastic tape, like that cheap, not cheap, but the plastic tape that is used, well, plastic looking tape. For example, back here on the salt and pepper shakers, I just covered that up. I cut the strands that were hanging and just covered it up, and it looks a lot better. And there's other stuff that I've done throughout this little project and wrapped with this tape. I really want to try to get, I know it's like impossible to see, but this fuel rail is the one with the valve on it, and I want to be able to get that valve. I want to be able to get a gauge on that valve, and I put the MSD cap on there for what it's worth, even though they're not the MSD wires, and that really bothers me that they don't lock through the little circles in the top of the cap. But yeah, it's really cool how that cap was designed. I mean, it was designed to be able to pop all those wires off but not lose your firing order, you know. Ever since I started driving it, taking it for little quick runs here and there were times when I'd have to give it gas when I pushed in the clutch and knew I was slowing down, you know, coming to a light or whatever the case may be, if I was slowing down, because there were a few occasions where the idle just surged too low and ended up stalling out, and I'd have to restart it. And it happened again the other day. I knew I needed to do a base idle reset, but I had been kind of putting it off. Why, I don't know. Needless to say, it happened, and when it did, I was hearing clinking, and it was just like, the idle was so low, it was just to the point where you get that clunk, you know what I mean? And it made me panic, and I finally decided, all right, we're pulling the battery cable, and we are going to disconnect the IAC. I pulled the battery cable, and I left it pulled for 30 minutes, as I found on StangNet years ago, which, if you guys don't know StangNet, it was a forum a long time ago that we used back in like the, I don't know, late 90s, early 2000s, before YouTube, you know. And so somebody has everything listed out there. So I just pulled the idle air control after I pulled the battery cable, left it off for 30 minutes. I tried to restart the car with the IAC. I reconnected the battery, tried to restart the car with the IAC disconnected. Let me back up a bit. I had already tested my TPS. And if you guys don't know what your voltmeter needs to be set on, 20. Just remember the angle if you have the same cheap Harbor Freight setup, right? Somebody had already nicked my wires so that could be done. So that helped. And I got a 0.92 reading. And that was yesterday. I just left it at that. I had my daughter here, and I'm like, all right, I'll just test it real quick because I never have. And again, I was dealing with surging issues, but I also knew that this car was, you know, knowing this car was an automatic, the computer is not a 5-speed computer, and I've converted it to a 5-speed. So when I slam that clutch in and that idle wants to drop, I didn't know if the computer was capable, or I knew it was capable, but I didn't know that it was ready to reset the idle perfect like it should be, right? Maybe it was too low. Maybe they set the automatic idles lower than they do the 5-speed. Who knows, right? Long story short, I disconnected the IAC. I reconnected the battery. I started the car. It would not run. And I was hoping it would run long enough for me to come around the car and turn the throttle screw. So what I ended up doing was it wouldn't stay running long enough, so I just came out here, I turned it a half a turn, jumped back in, fired it up, it wouldn't stay running, came back out, turned it a half another turn, jumped back in, came back out, it wouldn't run. So 4 times later, a full turn and a half, I think, later, it finally idled on its own without the IAC, without the IAC plugged in. And so I was stoked. I'm like, all right, good. So I think we made progress. Let's plug it back in and see if it'll run. I plug it back in. It idles good, but it's still idling lower than I expected. I figured at that point, after a full turn and a half almost, it would be up around 1,000 RPMs, but it wasn't. I let it run for, they say 2 to 4 minutes. I let it run for 6. I take my trash cans over, I try to keep myself busy so I'm not thinking about it. And I shut it off, right? It never really ends up leveling out perfect. And the next step is obviously turn on all your accessories, which every time I did that prior to this whole situation, it would immediately stall. If I came to a red light pushing the clutch, it would just die if I put the AC on. So I put on the headlights, threw on the AC on high, which fortunately it does blow cold, and she idled. So I took it for a nice 20-minute ride. And can I tell you that this son of a perfectly, when I stepped on the clutch, the RPMs literally just went right at 800. Every red light. So yes, I am a happy camper tonight. Very, very thankful that worked. And I drove it for even longer than 20 minutes. The other issue I was having was this clutch has not felt right since I put it in. And I mean, I knew the transmission shifted smooth the first night I drove it, the test drive. But after that, it just didn't feel like you could tell it wasn't engaging all the way. Something didn't feel right. I just started looking at Maximum Motorsports cables, which I think I'm going to do anyway. And initially that's a 2-hook quadrant, and we had the hook on the uppermost, we had the cable on the uppermost hook, the second hook, and I ended up adjusting the firewall adjuster out, right? And I thought I had it. And I could even tell at low RPM, you can just feel it. If you've been driving a Foxbody for a long time or a 5-speed, when it's not engaging or disengaging all the way. All it took tonight was for me to take that firewall adjuster and pull it out another couple turns, and now she's shifting like she should. I can hear the supercharger more. I don't know if it's because it's breaking in, but I can hear it more and more now. It's got initially this is the helical cut gear, so it's not supposed to be loud, but you can hear the whistle of it. Even with the hood closed and when you're cruising, you can still hear it. So I decided, you know what, let's just make the best of this day and at least get this Maximum Motorsports cable in, because, again, even though I have it adjusted right, which meant unscrewing the firewall adjuster almost 3/4, if not more, the way out. That was the only way I could get this thing to shift perfect. But even then, this cable, I believe it's like a SVE cable maybe, once this thing starts producing a little bit of heat and, I'm driving it for a good 20, 30, 40 minutes, that clutch, it just starts to get, the cable starts to get You feel it. It's gross. It doesn't feel right. The cable starts to get like a rigidness to it, like a, I don't know, it's hard to explain. You can just tell it's not smooth anymore. So I probably should have spent the money in the beginning and bought the proper $100 cable. I've never owned a Maximum Motorsports cable, but I've also always had issues with cables. In fact, on the Zakim Bridge, if anybody knows Massachusetts, on the Tobin Bridge, I came over the Tobin through the tolls, snapped a cable in my black 93 Vert as I was coming down the other side of the bridge, and had to coast to the right to get, instead of going in the tunnel, which there's no way to pull over in the tunnel. There's no breakdown lane. I had to coast over off the off-ramp into a neighborhood and basically just call a friend, have them buy a cable, blah, blah, blah. And that was probably the third time I've had a snapped cable. That was just one of the more memorable ones. So again, running headers, and, once you start modifying these cars, things change, and cables don't last. So I hope that cable lasts. It's a bit longer, and it's definitely got great reviews. So I'm hoping for the best. The cable's undone now at the transmission. I'm just going to go ahead and unhook it from the quadrant, pull it through. It doesn't come with the bracket there. I don't know if you can see that, but it doesn't come with the bracket, but it does come with a with a piece for it. So basically I just have to bend the bracket over it. So if you don't have a bracket and you order one of these cables, that's going to be an issue. I want to take a minute to show you guys the difference in these cables. First of all, this cable has only been in this car for, I don't know, maybe 600 miles, if that. It's already permanently bent and kind of stiff because of heat in that area, of course. Just past the headers, obviously right there. You're at the header, and then you kind of run down and get underneath the car. Well, that's going to run near the exhaust, of course. It's weird. They put a rubber coating up here, almost as if to prevent heat, maybe, I don't know. But there's really no heat in that area, right at the upper firewall. I mean, you're as far away from the exhaust as you can be with this cable. And then this one puts, the Maximum Motorsports ones, puts a heat shield there, right where this one is basically just, I mean, it's already dried up and frayed, and it's just, I don't know. And you can see the cable is immensely longer, so it'll definitely route better. And yeah, I'm definitely glad I bought it. I'll keep the small one. I eventually plan on running in the spare tire well. I've always done it with these cars. All the tools basic tools that I need to do a roadside kind of situation. And I'll keep this cable coiled up in there just for the hell of it. So yeah, that's where we're at with that. And I just wanted to show you guys the difference between what I believe is the SVE cable versus, I'd have to look at my account on LMR, but I think that's the SVE cable, and it's the non-adjustable one. Obviously it doesn't have the threaded thing. And so I bought the Maximum Motorsports one and changed over the bracket, put it in the vise and squeezed it, but not too much, just so it has the same looseness. We should be good to go. So stay tuned. That's where we're at. If you have any questions about the gauges or anything for that matter, you guys should always know. You can hit me up in the comments. I'll do my best to respond. And again, I'm just a regular guy doing this, so I don't have a ton of experience or tons of information I can offer you guys as far as what to do, how to do it. I'm just letting you know how I do it, or how I did it, and documenting any mistakes or issues along the way. My contribution to the Foxbody community, I guess, and the internet. Yeah, that's about it. Stay tuned.